Hello TT family, I just want to give a quick shout out to all of our Patreons before we start this video and the Beautiful Game Network. Thank you for sponsoring this video. Without you guys, this would not be possible. If you have a quick second, please go ahead and like this video and subscribe below. We appreciate all the help that we can get to grow the San Jose Earthquakes community and media presence along all platforms. As well as if you enjoy this video, please go ahead and share it with your friends and family. We would greatly appreciate it. Lastly, enjoy the video. Go Quakes. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Tectonic Takes. I want to quickly give a quick shout out to everybody that's a supporter of our Patreon and that always represents us on YouTube and likes all of our videos. Thank you to all you guys. You help to make this channel bigger. But we have a really special guest today. Jamon Moore is on the podcast. What's up, Jamon? I've been a big fan of you for many years, so I'm blessed to finally have you on our podcast for Tectonic Takes.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. It's been watching you guys grow, and it's exciting to have a lot more options now in the Quakes community for fans, and the more the better. And I can't wish you guys greater success. Hopefully it's going really well for the show.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jamon. And our biggest objective has been making the community bigger, right? Because we're an MLS team, but sometimes it just feels like, oh, we're a smaller size team. But at the end of the day, we should be a bigger size team. So that's what we wanted to go ahead and do. But we're here to talk about Luciano Abacassis. So a great transfer. Jamon, initial thoughts. What did you think of the transfer?
Yeah, what was really interesting is that, we really had no heads up at all. Normally some rumors out there, somebody from the Black in the School squad, in their contacts in the club has been able to dig up something. And in this case, no one really had any information at all. So the club did a really good job, I think, protecting the information if that was something that was important to them. But, a 30-year-old right back who can also play left back, I haven't gotten to see too much of him so far. Colin Etnier, who writes for Quakes Epicenter, dug in a bit into our Y Scout, was able to pull some video. And he said that he's actually really good with his left foot and that, he is able to play on the left side, which I think is really important because the club may be looking at losing Marcos Lopez for international duty. And, with that, I think it's important to be able to have a bit more depth someone who can plug in on the left side. Tommy Thompson did, serviceable there last year when Nick Lima kind of resumed the starting role on the right side. And I think what is important to Matias is this kind of like interchangeability at various positions, right?
Right.
He seems to value that very highly. I think that's a good thing for teams to have players that can be multifaceted and plug into different spots. And, now it looks like he's got kind of a right and a left back situation where he's got a bit of fluidity depending upon, if someone's getting called in for international breaks or there's an injury for a period of time,
right.
Or someone just needs a rest. And, they're starting to get some good depth in those spots now.
We were killed last year on depth. I mean, every time Utzon was out of the lineup, it just felt like this wasn't a full 100% team. And especially if we have international duty this year, we're going to be doomed. But now that we're getting depth and that we're getting a whole bunch of players in, and this is almost a whole new look Quakes. I mean, compared to the last year's Quakes where it was just Alanis really coming over and being the only transfer, this year we're actually getting a whole brand new Quakes, and it's a little bit exciting. I feel like looking back at the Nick Lima trade, I was terrified of what this season could become if we don't land that right back. And we were linked to Lyon. We were everybody here hoping that it was a close transfer. I know you said on the Stateside podcast that they were very close to that deal, and that would have been monumental for the Quakes FO if they landed that deal, because that would have just brought a whole bunch of buzz to the team and that they could desperately need. But I thought this was it kind of felt like a little bit like a backup plan, but that's okay. I felt like as long as we covered that hole with he has a lot of Copa Libertadores experience. So great, right? So I think anything that we plugged in that spot made me feel better. And if he has Copa Libertadores experience, that's even better. So I feel like looking back at the Nick Lima trade, it's a good trade. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of Quakes fans that are mad about this, but we got a free transfer. We didn't have to pay for anything, and we'll see how it pans out. But if he plays just as good as Nick Lima or even better, man, we came away with robbery. If Nick Lima's probably going to hit those incentives because he's looking like he will be their starting right back over there at Austin, and it's going to be a good trade in my book. Jamon, how do you feel looking back at the Nick Lima trade about this transfer?
Yeah, it's disappointing, that does seem like, Nick Lima, wanted to leave.
Yeah.
That seems to be the information that, has come out. And I think it's been fairly public at this point, because I think that it's important that the club is able to let people know that, we are going to do what's in the best interest of our players. And if Nick Lima believes that his opportunities are better outside the Quakes, right? We're going to work with him. And I think the way it was done was extremely professional by Jesse Fioranelli. I believe Jesse Fioranelli is a good executive.
Yes.
I think his hands can be tied quite a bit on the financial end of things by what he's allowed to do and the budget that he is given. Mm-hmm. And I think within those constraints, I think he does a pretty admirable job in most situations. Mm-hmm. The Nick Lima situation, you have to look at it and go like, overall, they turned what could have been a negative, a player who asked to leave,
right?
Because he wasn't getting the playing time or the respect. His stock at the national team level had dropped off. He wasn't playing his primary position for most of 2 years. So you can put yourself in Nick Lima's position and understand why he may feel that way, right?
Right.
And then his stock rose a little bit with a good set of performances toward the end of the season, particularly the way that he played against, a player like Pavone, where Tommy Thompson has struggled. And so it was really noticeable, the improvement when Nick Lima went in. And, so the club turned what could have been a negative into a positive. They got a record in league transfer amount in the $650,000 in GAM. There's another 50,000 or whatever it was in incentives, that's tied on top of that. It might have even been more than that. I'm trying to remember now. And so now you've got those incentives. And then if you can go out and get a player on a free transfer for $300,000, and let's say it's just a like for like, let's say it's relatively close. And with outside backs, it's not that the differences usually are not huge, right? It's not a position like a 10 where the difference good in the top and the bottom is this far. And, and my hand's gesturing right now for anyone listening, but, the difference at an outside back position is not as big of a gap between the top and the bottom, players in the league at a starting level. Right. So I think this is a player. Now, he hasn't been one of the players who's playing like 30 games a season, and that's okay, because I don't think he needs to. I think there's now enough depth at the position that he can just kind of rotate in, give people a break. Maybe it's going to be Tommy, but hey, if we know we're playing against a Pavone, maybe that's the right time, to play him, because we know Tommy will struggle against someone of a higher skill. Let's put in a more experienced player who's going to be able to take on that kind of matchup. So definitely, you have to say overall, it's at least a break even, and I feel like it's actually a net positive for the club.
Yeah, and to go back to your Jesse's a great executive remark. Actually, when we had Marvel win on the show, he told me that Jesse actually went out of his way to make sure that his medical bills and everything was taken care of by the club. So I can't reiterate enough how good of a person Jesse Fioranelli is, and he actually does a great job. He gets a lot of slack from the fans. Yes, everybody makes some bad transfers, no matter what team you're on, but he's definitely been a great executive and done a great job with the team and on all of that. But talking about just how he hasn't been that go-to player for the last clubs he's played for. Yes, I see that as well. But the highlight videos that I watched, I mean, it looks like he can deliver a nice, cross. So that's a little upside. There was a lot of fans saying that they're excited to see him link up with Espinoza on that right side. And that might be a really nice combo because they're both Argentinian. They both played in that league. They understand each other a little bit, possibly more. And this team looks like it's going to be a fun team. And I think the Nick Lima transfer was for 650, and then I think it might have been 200K incentives. I'm not sure if that's a little too much.
There was more incentives tied to it. I'm not sure that the club gave a final number on that.
But we got a guy like Eric Rometti for 200K with a couple of more incentives as well to make it 500,000. So I feel like, in retrospect, Nick Lima, yes, was a great player, and yes, he was a quality product from our Burlingame Dragons and became one of our starters and really a key part of this Quakes team. But if he wanted out, we got a big sum for him, actually. I know it sounds like a really small number because it's intra-league. I mean, we're talking about one entity trading within itself, so it's not like those European flashy transfers. But
right.
Yeah, I think it was a great piece of business for the Quakes. At the end of the day, you want to be able to create talent and then either sell that talent or use it to win championships. And unfortunately, if that talent doesn't want to be here, at least we made a profit on it, and a pretty sizable profit for Nick Lima, which hasn't had the best of years I think the last 2 years because he just didn't mix well with Almeida. But Jamon, this team looks nicer on paper than it did last year, or looks a little better on paper than it did last year. What are your thoughts on the season? I know we kind of came in here talking about Luciano, but maybe we can get a little season preview from you. What do you feel like this team is lacking still, and what do you think that they've improved on?
There was several important things that we had outlined ahead of the season that we felt that they needed to do. I wanted to see a TAM striker. I know a lot of people say DP striker, but I really don't feel that DP level is one critical to the team. I think it's more important to have that DP level at a 10 position than a 9. I think a 9 who's mostly a finisher is going to thrive with a 10 that can actually deliver. And you already have Christian Espinoza. So how do you leverage that into a situation where, the sum of the parts, is greater than the individual parts. And that's what a coach like Matias Almeida is paid, what he's paid. And let's be honest, he's either the highest paid in MLS, or now he might be number 2 with some of the recent coaching changes in the league. But he's at least in the top 5% of the coaches in MLS in terms of pay. That's a huge investment. Sometimes we think in terms of these DPs, but if you are if you're the owner of the team, right, and you are thinking about the investment in the club, you're looking at I'm paying Matias and his staff a premium to hand them, yes, maybe not necessarily the best roster in the entire league, but to give them enough pieces that they should be able to go out and compete and be able to put that team together and compete at a higher level. That's the thinking, that's gone into this process at the executive level. And I think the team has taken, some steps forward here. It was important, not just, to get a TAM 9, but to fix the 10 position. Is Shofi's that guy? I don't know, but it's only a year deal. And so, there's very little risk involved here. The Quakes got him on a loan. If it doesn't work out, it's easy to send him back, right? And to get the 10 the next season. It is somebody that Matias asked for. So a lot of people might go like, oh, they had their expectations on a different level of the 10. But it's actually a player that Matias wanted. So Matias is in effect getting the 10 that he wanted. Let's just, call a spade there. Right. So let's hope he's at least, going to be as good as Magnus Eriksson was in that position in terms of the distribution and the aggressive passing into the box that's really kind of needed from that. And he looks like he's going to be fit. And hopefully that means he's going to be able to help in the press a little bit better with a little bit more pace than Magnus offered. They needed to get some backup in central midfield. Eric Remedi is a great move, in my opinion. And I think in the opinion of most people who looked at it, in terms of that kind of midfield depth.
Mm-hmm.
He both has attributes of Jackson Ewell in terms of his passing. He also has attributes in terms of his defending that Judson would have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of have this unique double pivot with a true defensive midfielder and a Regista type 6 together in the double pivot. And so, you know, having someone who can kind of plug into either one of those spots, that's a real, you know, accomplishment. I mean, finding the right kind of player, and he understands Matias's systems and he knows how to slot back into it. So that's a positive. You know, they've at least, I think, done what they needed to do in replacing Nick Lima, you know, with probably something that's a bit of a like for like. The spot that really still concerns me is going to be the right center back position. You know, Flo's a great guy. We all love Flo, but he's at that point in his career that he's likely to take a step back. In my opinion, he made a step back last season to some level. His 1v1 defending is a little bit lacking in situations. He overcommits at times. Kasia had the same issue in that position, overcommitting, and you know, goals would happen in behind, right? So it's a little bit concerning, plus the set piece goals. Yeah. And so they don't have that real kind of aerial presence in the back line who's going to ensure that the team improves on the set piece side of the equation. And to me, like, you need that aerial threat center back. Right. And in the ideal world, they would have also done the same thing at the 9. They would have gotten, because so one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that your 9 quite often in a set piece situation is one of the players that you bring back in order to head balls out, because they're proficient with heading balls. Right. And so, you know, if you're going to defend set pieces, you need that 9 who can head balls out. Well, that's not Andy Rios. Right. That's not Chris Wondolowski. And if you don't have the right center backs, now you go like, oh, that's why this team gave up so many set piece goals last season, right? It's not the goalkeeping. At the end of the day, it's not really the goalkeeping. It's not, you know, these other things. It's that you don't have the aerial presence to be able to command the box, so to speak. And so that's where having, I think, the right TAM 9 could have been a help. But more importantly, I think you need to be able to get the right center back. Now, some good news, Tanner Beeson, you know, at the left center back, you know, I thought when he came in last season, I don't believe, maybe they gave up one set piece goal, but only one. Yeah. And it might not have been any. I do believe Tanner Beeson is having him back there does help that situation a little bit more. He's got a little bit more size. He seems to have kind of an ability to win aerial balls. When he was playing regularly, he started leading the team in aerials 1 during the time that he was playing. So that was actually a positive. And if you remember, they won most of the games that Tanner Beeson played. I think they lost the first one, maybe 2. And then that little stretch of wins that they went on, that was Tanner Beeson back there. As soon as they kind of made the switch back at that spot, you know, they started getting more draws. Yeah. And it wasn't quite the same. And they did start to give up the set piece goals a bit again. And then we saw in the playoff game that they gave up, you know, two corner kicks, or I think both corner kicks, right?
Yep, it was there
in Kansas City, almost in the exact same spot. And who got hurt on that? My recollection is that it was Nick Lima on one, got beat on one, and the other was Florian Youngworth. So, you know, that's where having those the type of player who can win those aerials is really important.
Yeah, and that was our Achilles heel all last year. So it's definitely, I mean, I can't recollect as well, but I do remember Nick Lima having a lot of mistakes that led to goals last season. Good. And so it is nice seeing that maybe those goals won't be let in, because we're going to have a new right back in Luciano Abacasis. And it makes, you know, me a little more optimistic. But I believe that, going back to your Tanner Beeson comments, they're look really highly on Tanner Beeson. So eventually they think that he's going to step into that role. If Alanis leaves, I mean, he's going to go right into that center back position. And I was really critical on Tanner Beeson at the start. I felt like it wasn't his time yet, but Almeida was pressured into putting him in and making him start. But he definitely looks like he's rounding about at least being, that commander in the box on the corner kicks, because we need that bad. That was our Achilles heel last year, and it ruined us in the playoffs, and it ruined us during the season. And like you said, I never even thought about bringing in a tall, striker to, command the box as well. So that's another place where they can improve on to make sure that we don't get completely beat on corner kicks next year. But we're not done yet, right? So if the season started today, who is your starting striker, Jamon? Who do you put up there to start if the season started today?
Yeah, if the season started today, I think you have to start the season with Chris Wondolowski right now. I just don't feel the confidence with Andy Rios as the single, the single striker. And now you got Chofis. So it'll be interesting to see what Almeida's decision on Andy Rios is. Is he going to be a backup for Chofis?
Right.
Is he going to be the starting 9? Is he going to back up Chris Wondolowski? What do we do about, the new signings that have been made at the striker position between, Benji Kukanovic and I'm not sure I
Tommy Williamson.
Last name exactly right, and Tommy Williamson, right?
Yeah.
So I think he goes by Thomas now. I think
Thomas.
Thomas, right? So, I think it's a big question as to what does Almeida do about Andy Rios now,
right? And
the answer to that question probably determines who the starting 9 is.
Yeah, because we finally have depth, right? So we can say, maybe I want Chofis in the middle, Fierro on the left, and Espinoza on the right, and then Rios comes in at the 9, or you can be the backup for Chofis. So, and then Chofis can either move to the left, and then, Fierro can move to the center. So it's definitely intriguing, or it's exciting that we're going to have a whole bunch of different looks. And once the preseason starts, then we can finally see what he's trying out and what he's tinkering with. And that's coming up fast. And
they're going to need the depth. It's not just that there's going to be international breaks and call-ins and things like that. One, the Quakes have been really, knock on wood, very healthy for the last 2 years overall. I will be shocked if they can go another season without some sort of big injury hitting them. And knocks do come, and the games are also going to be on a compressed schedule. And we know how this team could struggle quite a bit last season during elements of the compressed schedule.
Right.
If they didn't come into that area of the schedule fully fit, like that's when they struggled.
Yeah.
When they were able to get a week and a half to prepare, like they did at MLS's back, and also later in the season where they got a full kind of week and a half off. That's when they were able to turn the season around, because a lot of them were saying we're just too beat up.
Yeah.
The schedule is too much. The players can't handle it. In so many words, that's what he was telling us, and he was really frustrated with it. There's anyway, all that to basically say that it's important to, I think that the fans of the Earthquakes are a little bit conditioned that the best 11 players should always be the starting 11. This is a time where I think you got to start taking a step back and say, look, it's going to be more like the starting 15. There needs to be a good bit of rotation in order to be able to survive this compressed season.
Definitely.
And so you need Andy Rios to be able to play a 9. You need Wando to be able to play a 9. You need these youngsters to be able to step in. You need, Rios to also be able to back up Chofis, right?
Right.
So, you're going to need to have depth in each of these spots. You're going to need Chase Salinas to come in and play some left wing, and you're going to need a reliable backup for Christian Espinoza, where when he steps off the pitch and needs a game off, the offense doesn't fall apart.
Right.
So and then you need this rotation that they'll now have in the central midfield. Again, it comes back to the center back spot. I just don't really feel very strongly that they're in a good position for an entire season at center back. They've got 3 reliable center backs. Beyond that, it's youngsters, unproven youngsters who we've maybe seen for a game here or there, and maybe they did well in a particular game. But a lot of that was a lot of cover by the veterans, making sure that they didn't get exposed into a bad situation, and not because that's a permanent type solution. So,
do you think there's going to be possibly one last transfer coming in, either that center back position or a true 9, like you were talking about?
So if I had to guess, they have 2 senior spots left that we can tell on the roster, and let's assume that they'll get the international spots adjusted, through green cards or whatever. They'll solve that particular problem. My best guess is that they're going to focus on the center back position, because Jesse said that first he's going to solidify the defense and work his way forward. Yeah, that's what he told us. What was it, 3 weeks ago when we talked with him? So given that particular comment, now that he's gotten the right back position taken care of, solidifying the defense tells me he's probably going to make one more move on the center back. Remedi, obviously being another move, I think was necessary.
Definitely. Yeah.
So now I think he's going to leave that last roster spot available for a mid-season move. And I know no one wants to hear mid-season again with this club, but he explicitly said that he wants to leave some money. He wants to leave some space to be able to do that. And you can't do what you could do in previous years and just send somebody to Reno on a season-long loan.
Yeah, right.
You could send someone else to a different USL club. You could make a trade. You could do all kinds of different things. You could leave people off of the roster. But at the same time, with 2 senior spots left in the international slot situation and everything else, my guess is he's going to look at a new attacking option mid-season if he thinks, and he kind of hedged that by saying, if I think it's needed in order to be able to accomplish our objectives, right? So, I think he's going to leave a roster spot available, and I think he's going to look at that, 9 or 10 spot, maybe even a left wing a little bit, and probably make a move mid-season for one of those spots.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, Quakes fans don't want to hear that, but yeah, it's more realistic.
That's what I think is that's what I think is the reality.
Yeah. Definitely.
So, I mean, you're looking at a team who, as presently constructed, is probably looking at, I would say like a 6th or 7th, maybe an upside of a 4th or 5th place.
Yeah.
In the West, if everything comes together, if they can prevent the kind of collapses mid-season that they've had the last 2 years, the fatigue doesn't set in too much. If Matias is rotating the squad, given the depth that he has now for most of the areas, that he needs to rotate a lot more than we've seen him rotate. Just relying on the same 11 because they're the hot hand to go out there for 4 or 5 straight games, ends up running those players into the ground, and you can't rotate 11 people at one time. Yeah. So you've got to constantly make a change of 1 or 2 players every single game and rotate in. Like I said, it needs to be like kind of that starting 15 that he can kind of trust and always be rotating and always be putting in 1 or 2 of those players.
Okay. Well, since this is Tectonic Takes, I'm going to ask you one last question, Jamon. What is your Tectonic take of this next season? So hot take of this next season.
Oh, it's got to be a Tectonic take, huh? Okay.
Yeah. Or it could be a semi-Tectonic take if you want.
Wow. I don't tend to think in those terms because I'm an analyst, and so
It's also
get into the data, and I'm not trying to think outside the box. I'm actually trying to get to the truth. Okay, well, I think my biggest take will be that we will see Chris Wondolowski finish his career with a 15-goal season.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome.
I think getting some more attacking options in there, I think is going to be really good for Wando. And if they can get him a bit of rotation so that he's fresh and he's coming into situations and the team is not slumping, and they're giving him decent service, I think he definitely, at the pace he was going last year, like that still was realistic. And he went through a big dry spell in the middle of the season.
Right.
So, imagine if like everything can kind of get clicking on the offensive side.
Right.
And that's the benefit of bringing in these players that Matthias knows. They should be able to hit the ground running. That should be an expectation.
Yeah.
Because they know the system, they know him, and they don't have to figure certain things out. So, I mean, it will take probably a few games adjustment, like it does anybody, but it should be overall a fairly productive season for this team.
All right. Well, Jamon, thank you for coming on. Everybody here knows you, but how can we find out more about you, or where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, I'm at Jamon Moore Quakes. Most people know that I'm kind of run the day-to-day with quakesepicenter.com. So you can also find me there. And I got a brand new project on American soccer analysis that just got launched today. You can check that out at Analysis Evolved. It's been great to get to come on.
Yeah, and I appreciate you coming on. You can also catch Jamon Moore on Black and Azul, another great web show that is for the Earthquakes. So definitely check them out, guys, and show them a lot of love. So Jamon, thanks for coming on. And all I have to say is go Quakes.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me.